G'day, I'm Murray, this is my backyard, and it's proven nearly impossible lately to record an introduction to a video because it's been too windy. So that's why I'm currently recording this in the studio to lip sync over the top of this. Don't worry, it will go very much like a poorly dubbed kung fu movie. And my artistic editor is reminding me that it might be breakfast time. I had a pretty bad washout occur in a gully after some earthworks in that area, levelling out a hill and smoothing out the gully. The bottom of the gully was loose packed and it was victimised by some rain. At its widest, it would have been about 4 feet, and also at its widest it would have been about 3 feet deep at that point, so there is quite a void to fill in some parts of this gully. I put a few stakes in and some hay just as a stopgap measure, and basically that would require lots of dirt to wash down, get caught in the hay and build up to do any good in the gully. And there was a protracted dry spell, so this wasn't going to happen. I needed some kind of plan. Every year in the veg patch, I put down a layer of council mulch on the paths. This is just green waste that's taken to the local, what are they called now? Well, the local tip. And they grind it up when they've got enough and they pile it up, and then you can come along and they can fill your ute for you. After a bit of thought, I decided to use council mulch as fill. There is an advantage to the council mulch in that it can be aquaphobic. After it settles, water can just run straight off the top of it. So it's possible that it will form this impermeable waterproof layer and will be immune to flooding. It's also unfortunately quite possible that being light, mainly wood chip, it can float and just wash away. It was absolutely filthy stuff, and it prompted me to get a decent respirator at last. The danger of it washing away is one of the reasons why I came up with a possibly overly complex plan. First, you fill the gully until it's a couple of inches below ground level all the way through it. Then you get a mess of wire, much like this, fine stuff, and then you get a heap of these pegs. You shape the wire so that it conforms to the shape that you want, so that it will match the gully exactly. And then you pin it down with the pegs. And then, because you were 3 or 4 inches below ground surface, you add another 3 or 4 inches of mulch across the top, just to top it up. That was the overly complicated plan. There were some downsides to this overly complicated plan, and that is that the wire and the pegs could work their way to the surface over time, and considering this gully will end up grassed at some stage, they could really mess with the ability to mow this area. You don't really want to be hitting wire and steel pins every time you are mowing. And because there'll be roots going down through the wire and beneath it, it would be very difficult to remove the wire once this gully becomes grassed. So I could have been creating a bit of a headache for myself. I know it looks like this is pretty full and at ground level in some of these pictures, but don't worry, this stuff sinks down over time or when you apply sufficient weight to it. At this point in time, I was definitely still planning on using the wire and the steel peg method. I'd also decided to apply a bit of weight to the mulch because I'd laid down a fair bit by this time, and I thought by applying some weight it would make it less likely to wash away in the near term. Well, that crushed it a fair bit. I did a few more trips up and down it, and 6 or 8 inches in certain places. I didn't compress all of it, compact all of it. There's a strip that I've run up and down. Basically, if we get rain, I hope that's where the lowest point is, except around here. Oh. Big job. Hope it doesn't all wash away. We had 110 mil of rain, quite heavy, quite hard, and it doesn't look like anything's actually washed in this part of it. We have very porous soil here. Oh. We've had some washouts here, but nothing. It looks like the water's dived down. Ooh, had some soil washed down. Okay, that's held up beautifully. Awesome. That got me thinking. That 110 mil of rain came down in a series of storms. It wasn't just a steady drizzle over 48 hours. It poured down briefly, stopped, poured down again, stopped, and so on. The ground was saturated, and yet there was still almost no runoff, and this worked perfectly. I was extremely pleased with how well the mulch alone stood up to the rain, and it got me thinking about the problems I might face with the wire method. I'd feel very silly if I went to all of the trouble of pinning down wire all the way down the length of this gully and then laying mulch on top of it if all I have to do is just lay more mulch and run over it. So ultimately, I decided to go the easy way, and if it all washes away, so be it. Well, my plans are always pretty fluid, and during the process of laying out this mulch, which was a bit fiddly because the ute had to move a lot, I kind of decided not to run over it. I had a fairly compacted surface beneath this layer of mulch. This layer of mulch will settle down, hopefully, and water will run over the top of it. But if not, maybe just this one layer of mulch, this final top layer, will wash off, and the compacted layer beneath will stay in place. Maybe. The magpie nest is, you see those two mango trees? It's behind the mango tree on the left in another mango tree. Oh, it's good to get that mask off. Does an excellent job. Over half, and this bit here, I'm pretty sure is the widest, nastiest bit to fill. And this is fairly narrow, but it was very deep. It's a lot shallower now. Okay, one more load and I'll have a bit spare. I might be able to mow this properly. Finishing it off, it took about 2/3 of a load, and in between the last fill and this fill, I'd actually been mowing in the area, so I'd mowed the lower part. It was very dusty, but I could mow quite neatly around the old washout. Have to wait and see how it holds up. This is where I'd mowed too. So that's one of the projects I've been dealing with. I did it over the course of a couple of months because there was no rush in the dry season. I hope it's going to work out well, but I'm going to have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure it's going to need a top up at some stage because it will all settle, but we haven't had significant rain yet, so I don't know how it's going to go. Fingers crossed. Hope you enjoyed this. See you next time. Have a good one.